You see my screen okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I need to swap now.
Okay, okay.
Still good?
Yep, still good.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's month of service presentation. Excuse me, of maintaining and adding value to your home. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the A Month of Service collaboration. Also included, we have the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, Lone Star Legal Aid, the Earl Carl Institute, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, the Texas Legal Services Center, the Harris County Tax Office, the Harris Central Appraisal District, and the Harris County Attorney's Office, who are all part of the A Month of Service collaboration. And basically, a month of service is a collaboration of all nine of our organizations. We come together on a monthly basis and offer a variety of different workshops, resources, and information to the community relative to asset building, asset protection, the maintaining of generational wealth, and community empowerment. We decided several years ago to come together in a collective effort to try to pool a lot of our initiatives, since we pretty much service the same communities, to try to get as much accurate and up-to-date information out to the community as we possibly can. So today you're joining us for our for the neighborhood recovery as part of our post home ownership education for our maintaining and adding value to your home. So today we are joined by Ms. Nikki Collins with Keys Real Estate Services, along with Mr. Brian Smith with Smith Group Property Inspections, who's going to be providing you all with some information about basic home maintenance tips. What is it that you need to do to help with the longevity of your home as you're going through the different seasons and you're preparing for hurricane season that's coming up in the next couple of months? What is it that you need to do to make sure that you kind of got your things together, and again, with helping with the basic maintenance that you don't that's not going to cost you a lot of money for deferred maintenance purposes, if in the event that you don't maintain certain things, how it could actually cost you a whole lot more money in the long run. In addition to that, in case you're interested in making some upgrades and some changes, what is it that you need to do, is in the event that you want to try to put your house on the market, what actually adds, the and knowing the difference between adding market value and appraised value to your house as it relates to uh, the market, or as it relates to your property taxes and the tax valuations. Protest season's coming up, but we're not going to get into a lot of detail as it relates to property tax protests, because we do have that presentation that's going to be coming up on April the 22nd, where you'll be able to talk with the tax office and the appraisal district about protest and protest seasons, and how do you determine values and all of that kind of stuff. So, but we want to basically make sure at least that you have that information as it relates to your home as it is. What is it you can do? What is it you need to know? And how we can proceed from here. This is your opportunity to ask questions directly of the professionals in these areas. If you're joining us on the Zoom, please feel free to type your questions into the chat, or unmute yourself and wait till the end of the presentation, and you can ask your questions directly and have a verbal conversation. If you are joining us on social media, do note, please type your question into the comment section. I'm monitoring that as well. And I do know that there were a couple of questions that were emailed to me in advance, and I'll make sure that those get addressed if they're not addressed throughout the presentation as well. But again, this is your opportunity to ask questions of the professionals in these areas. To get these questions ask, and kind of put your concerns at rest. Do note that we do record this session. It will be sent out to all the participants who have registered to be here for today. We also do broadcast live on our social media platform, so we want to try to protect your privacy as best as we possibly can. So we ask that you try to keep your questions to be as general as you can get them, so that way you're not divulging any personal detail information. So don't, refer to your address and who you're married to and where you live, all that kinds of stuff. So again, but keep that in mind if you do have questions. If there's something really, really specific about your personal situation, we do encourage you to reach out to our presenters with those questions, and we'll make sure that you have their contact information at the end as well. But otherwise, please keep your questions to be as general as it relates to the topic that we are talking about today. So, what else is there? Information that we do provide here is for educational purposes only, and there's no way in shape or form are we trying to poach you or solicit service or anything like that, or provide you with any kind of legal advice. It's just for informational and educational purposes only. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and get started. First, we're going to have Ms. Nikki Collins with Keys Real Estate Services to be giving you the information about, the value of your house. So Ms. Nikki, would you want to go ahead and get started?
Okay, let me.
And we're going to have Brian. It's going to be
Okay.
here in just a little while, and we can see.
Okay. Hi, my name is Nikki Collins. I am a certified general real estate appraiser. I am a second generation real estate professional. I am what most people, I think that the average appraiser is an accidental appraiser unless you come from a family of appraisers. My background is in IT, which I have found in these years to be very helpful as the industry changes. I received my real estate master's degree from Texas A&M, and I have been a real estate professional for over 20 years. I started real young, almost in the womb. And this has been, I was never intending to be in real estate, but I have found that it gives me immense joy to be able to help families achieve their generational dreams, really, using real estate as a vehicle. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how we, the appraiser, determines value. Um, they're mad at appraisers right now. I think they probably mad at our office more than probably any appraisal office because the market is correcting. And as we get further into it, we're going to talk about what it means that the market is correcting and how that's going to impact our return. So, what is the return? What is it that people are talking about when they say that they're seeking a return? So, your ROI is your return on investment. It's always important, whether it's stocks and bonds, whether it's gold, whether it's cash, whatever it is where you are making an outlay. You want to know, if I put this in, what am I going to get out? We're going to talk about cost versus value. We're going to talk about the difference between pecuniary value and personal value. All of those things matter when we're talking about the return. So, return on investment measures the profit that you have made or could have made on an investment. We use the example of a widget. So, it costs me, and we're going to do it in simple numbers where I can do real easy math. So it cost me $1 to make whatever this sock. This pair of socks cost me $1. I want to make 50, I want to make 50% return on my cost, right? So I'm going to sell this pair of socks now for $1.50. So now I've made 50 cents because the dollar was just returned to me to reimburse me for my cost. The 50 cents was the additional. So it's 50% of my cost. That's my return on investment, a 50% return on investment. Now, somebody might say, oh, that's outlandish. Think you're going to make 50% on your investment. You must not know what they are making socks for and what they are selling them for. It's way more than 50% some of these days. So once we have an idea of what we would like to make, and sometimes what we would like to make isn't realistic, right? I'm going to buy a property for $100,000, and I'm going to do $5,000 worth of work, and I want to be able to sell it for $200,000 because this neighborhood's hot, right? Or you'll have a contractor come out and tell you, if you make XYZ changes, it's going to increase your property value by such and such amount. At that point, you want to ask him for his appraiser's license, because what he thinks and what an appraiser will say are very seldom not even in the same ballpark. So let's talk cost versus value. Let's look at that. So let's say we have this home and the contractor comes in. We bought a house for $100,000. So we're going to use easy numbers. Bought a house for $100,000. A contractor comes in and says, I'm going to do $100,000 worth of work. And if I do this $100,000 worth of work, we are going to triple your investment. You're going to make 300 times more not than your initial investment. So if I spend $100,000, he tells me if I spend another $100,000, then my house won't just be worth $200,000, it'll be worth $300,000. Okay? Now, maybe and maybe not. And let's talk about the maybe, maybe not. We talked about those two types of values. One was personal and one was pecuniary. Personal talks about, what is this worth to me? Pecuniary says, what is this worth in dollars and cents in the open and fair market? Open and fair is always important when determining value, because let's say that your grandfather had a car. I like this example. Your grandfather had a car, and it was the car that he would take you in to get ice cream. And you all would just laugh and sing songs. And it was such an integral part of your childhood riding on these trips with your grandfather. So now you are an adult. You've got a job, you've got $3 or $4. You want to go, and you've taken care of all of the things you really need. And you saw a photo of you and your grandfather sitting in that car. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to go and find that car. So you began to go and you look for the car. And the car is worth, according to the blue book, about $40,000. Let's say it's an antique. It's still got some life left into it. It is not really what cars do unless they're in that category. It's an appreciating asset because of the kind of car that it is. But to you, you are willing to pay. You're now in a bidding war with somebody else whose grandfather loved the car, who had the car. And both of you are making purchases based on the personal value, has nothing to do with the actual value of the car. Pecuniary value says, this is what the cost is, this is what the initial cost was, this is what we have put into it, this is how much we can reasonably expect it to sell in the open market. The reasonable expectation for granddad's car was did I say 40, was $40,000. So that's the pecuniary value. Now, you are free to spend $100,000 on that car if it's just really worth it to you and you don't mind not getting your money back. Right? If the feel goods are worth $60,000, and I know we say, I couldn't imagine the feel goods being worth $60,000, but everybody has a thing where they're willing to pay a little more just for the feel goods, whether it's a purse or shoes, electronics. We all have a thing, right? So, what we want to make sure though is that when we are purchasing according to our personal value, that we are not then blindsided on the back end when we don't get any pecuniary return on investment. So, this thing costs $60. This thing costs So this pair of socks cost $1, I mean $1 to make, but the value on the open market is $1.50. Now let's talk about let's look at the reverse. I have the socks in my market sell for $1.50. But I have found this fabric that is going to revolutionize the sock industry. But it's going to cost me $2 to make this sock. The market, however, does not care about your revolutionary fabric. They're going to buy that sock for $1.50. So now you have a negative return on investment. So you want to be sure, again, maybe you say, I want to get in on the ground floor. I'm not worried about my loss because if I give it time, the market will catch up with what's happening with this sock. And I know it's not coming together. It may not be coming together, but I promise as we move through the slides, we'll see all of this. But keep these ideals in mind that sometimes I can spend money and it will help me to increase my profit and my return on investment. Sometimes I can spend money and because it's so ooey gooey good to me, I don't mind that I may lose some money or lots of money. Sometimes I will spend money because I had a bright idea and the market was not there with me yet. And so I end up losing money. So keep those things in mind with regard to cost versus value. Now, what are large impacts on return on investment? One is the rising cost of money. The easiest place to see the rising cost of money is how the Federal Reserve changes the interest rate. If you look at what the interest rate is doing, it gives you a rough idea of how costs are going to be impacted in the market. And there are lots of things that can impact that interest rate. Right now, realtors all over the nation, and I'm a realtor and an appraiser, realtors all over the nation are frustrated by the current conflict in Iran, not for political reasons, but because we thought the rates were getting ready to come down. But because there's now uncertainty in the market, those interest rates are they're staggering. And if the Federal Reserve is nervous, guess what? So are all the other lenders. And that means that money is going to become more expensive. We're going to have less people available to move in the market. When money becomes more expensive, we say, oh, the interest rate is up. Well, that won't impact me. I wasn't going to get a loan. I was going to use cash for my project. Let's talk about labor and materials. So you were not going to get a loan. You were going to use cash. You had a fresh inheritance burning a hole in your bank account, right? You have uh what do we say? I got a bonus and I gotta find somewhere to put that bonus. So your plan was to use cash. Well, you were going to go to the lumber yard to purchase your materials. Well, your lumber yard has to go and buy their lumber from the lumberjacks. That's still a thing? From the lumberjack people. Your wood store has to get the wood from somewhere. I'm gonna take you all the way down the line. So now you have this company that works in this on this land that they have owned that has lumber. That company has a loan to pay their employees. Their interest rate has gone up. Do you know what they do with that cost? They pass it to your lumber yard. So now your lumber yard, when they went and they purchased those materials that you were going to need in order that they could sell them to you, you know what they did with that increased charge? They passed it to you. No one is absolved from the rising interest cost. If you buy anything from anyone, you are impacted by rising interest costs. So it's not just materials, it's labor too. We talk about, I was writing this morning, my mother, and we were discussing the cost of diesel, right? And how it had gotten out of control and how it was impacting the truckers. And that's a real easy one to see in terms of the gas prices. What we don't think about, landscapers who are, you've been paying this same price for 50 years to get your grass cut. And now your landscape people are telling you they're gonna take you up $5 or $6. Why? Because it's costing more for them to fill their machinery. And so we're all impacted all along the way when money becomes more expensive. So now what do you do? I own this property. I want to do good with it. I want to have good return on investment. Yes, I want to enjoy it, but I want to do good with my money. How do I know whether or not I'm doing a good job with my money? So let's look at whether or not we're in a seller's market versus a buyer's market. And remember, I told you we were going to talk about this market correction we're currently experiencing. What does this mean? So the interest rate plays a huge part in determining whether or not we're in a seller's versus buyer's market. Right now, the interest rates, let's go back to a time when life was great for realtors and appraisers and home sellers. Okay. In the start of the pandemic in 2020, they could not move, they could not give property away, right? They couldn't give property away at the start of 2020. So people were able to buy, and it wasn't because of the interest rate. It was just because we didn't know how this pandemic was going to go. So people were not making long-term decisions until they felt more settled. So what you had in the bottom half, especially of 2020, was you could buy property for a song. Why wasn't I buying property for a song? So you could buy property for a song. Well, let's talk about what happened in 21 when we had the great migration to people realizing, you know what? I could really work from my home. And even if I don't work from home, I was home long enough to realize that I don't really like my house, right? So let me go and try to get something I really like. And we got into a purchaser's frenzy because the real estate market had been so stagnant and it's such a big part of our economy. The Federal Reserve stepped in and said, listen, let's get these interest rates down so that we will encourage buyers to enter the market. Now, you would say if the buyers are entering the market, surely this is a buyer's market. Absolutely not. If that interest rate goes down, and lots of buyers are able to qualify and get big money to buy more than they could before. Do you know who profits from that? The seller. And it didn't help that we had people who were like, oh, if I'm working remotely, I can live anywhere. Oh my goodness, Texas looks cheap. And we have, East Coast money, West Coast money. We're going to throw it in that market. And the prices began to skyrocket because the pool of buyers was so large, the competition was so fierce that people were able to, the singing days, the buy a house for a song, that was over. You were now buying a house with a lament because maybe it had what you wanted in the house and maybe it didn't. And if it didn't, the seller did not care because there was someone right behind you ready to put their offer in and they were going to pay more and do more and it was going to appraise for whatever they were asking because the comparables were insane. And we'll talk about comparables when we get a little further down. The comparables were insane, so they could justify almost anything that they were selling their properties for. Sellers were ecstatic, right? Okay, let's come on now to 2026. The market is doing what appraisers call a correction. We're not really declining. It feels like a decline if you bought in 22 and you weren't planning to hold, right? But if you bought in 22 and you bought a little elevated, but you don't really plan on going anywhere, then what the market will do is it had done this when it had gone way up here when it should have come maybe about here. And the market is correcting to where it should get to. And eventually that correction, those two things will meet. And then we should be able to get back into what we call normal real estate cycles. That's what we're waiting on. Appraisers are waiting on us to get to a normal real estate cycle. And in a certain degree, them holding that interest rate is helping us to get back to normalcy, right? To get back to reasonable because I'm sure most of us look at what houses cost now and we are completely flabbergasted. Not that they cost that much, because we eventually expected it to get to cost that much. It just should not have happened this quickly. So, what does it mean now for us in this market? Well, we're in more of a buyer's market. And we're in a buyer's market because of a few things. One, the people who bought in the time when interest rates are low, they do not want to sell. Why do they not want to sell? Because they would like to keep their 2% interest rate. Why do they want to keep it? Because we would probably never see that again in our lifetime, right? That was a once in a lifetime interest rate. Those of us who have studied the markets for a long time will be surprised if any of us live to see that again. It was truly a dire situation that they were attempting to correct. And I think we now have the historic what happens historically, that it overcorrects and we end up in, a little bit of a quandary because we did that. So the seller now has a much smaller buying pool because the interest rates went up. And so people don't qualify for as much. They go outside and they said, oh my goodness, this house should only cost $265,000 and it's $345,000 because they're looking at it with 2020 brain, right? Instead of 2026 brain. And so it becomes very difficult, where before in that seller's market, you could have a house that was hanging on by one shingle and somebody would say, I could do something with this. I could do something with this. Don't worry about it. Draw up the contract. Now a purchaser will come in and say, I don't like the color of the cabinetry. No, we don't have to do this. Why? Because they can go and find a seller who's willing to say, look, what kind of kitchen do you want me to put in so I can get out of this house? And so that's how we identify when the interest rates are higher and there are fewer people in the purchasing pool. We're in a buyer's market, right? It's harder to become a buyer. When you have the interest rates that are really low and you have a huge buyer's pool, then we're typically in a seller's market. What does that do on return? That one's kind of cut and dry. If the seller has a large available pool with seemingly endless resources, they're going to make a great return on their investment if they did well when they purchased. Of course, that's the caveat. And the buyer may not do so well. Talk to some of those people who bought in 22 who are suffering through this correction because they had planned to move in 2 or 3 years and they are finding that they're not going to be able to move, or they may have to pay to get out of those properties. So, and if you're in a buyer's market, then you may have an opportunity to buy something at a low enough price point where you are insured a pretty fabulous return. All right. So things that we consider. We've already talked a little bit about some of this. How long are you going to own that property? We were talking about the person in 2022. If you were planning to stay there, if this was your end of the line home, and you said we're going to retire in this house, then you don't really care about market fluctuations because you don't plan to be on the market. And when you don't plan to be on the market, you don't plan to do anything to the property, get all of the personal value that your pocket can stand, because you know you're going to have an opportunity to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Now, the thing I do always suggest that people consider is, because I know that even as I'm talking to those who own homes, I may also be talking to those who own for the purpose of rental, or you may be intending to flip or resell or that kind of thing. And you may not necessarily want to do in a house that is not your homestead property, that you would do in one where you could enjoy whatever it is that you're doing. So let's get to, what do we do with these properties? What do we do? And if we do, what we plan to do, does it make a difference? There are two types of what we would call large change groups. One is deferred maintenance, one is capital improvements. Brian's going to talk in detail about what appraisers call deferred maintenance, and it will sometimes upset um, homeowners and agents because they feel that we should acknowledge some things that they've done and we just can't. We will come in and they'll say, we put new carpet throughout. Well, the home was built in 1986. I would hope 40 years later that yes, there's new carpet. We replaced the roof. Yes, you had a 25-year roof. We're at year 23 in the great city of Houston, where a 25-year roof does not last 25 years. So, yes, it was time to replace that roof. Deferred maintenance is just you doing what you need to do to keep your asset in good condition, just to keep it meeting the status quo. You did fresh paint. Yes, it was time to paint. You changed out fixtures. Yes, it was time to change. You get what I'm saying? There are those things. The water heater broke, so I replaced it. Yes, you should have replaced the broken water heater. And although all that's going to do is to help me not give you a negative value impact, but it may not encourage me to give you a positive value impact. How do we get positive value impact? Capital improvements. Those are made to increase the value of a home. I always typically use my home as the example. This home was purchased in 1986. It was built in 1982, I think. Um, when we bought the house, I say we, I didn't spend a dime. But when when the house was purchased, it had sheet vinyl flooring. And I remember this because my sister and I set it on fire one day. And but that sheet vinyl flooring has over these 40 some odd years been replaced by at least one, two, three, four different types of alternate floors. And what we would do, because my mother, who is the first generation real estate appraiser, we will go, even now, I will go into new construction properties to see what's happening in new construction properties. How are they finishing them? What kind of materials are they using? Because that lets you know where the market is and what it's doing, right? What they're doing in new homes. And you kind of want to look at different levels of new homes, because different levels of new homes are doing different things, because it's a sub niche of the market. And so we would go and we would see what they are doing. And so that's how we would know what type of flooring we needed to put in. That's how we would say, oh, so nobody's using incandescent bulbs anywhere. We need to do recessed with LED. So there are just those kind of things that you do. We had galvanized plumbing. We took that out. We put in PEX. We had a 40-year-old box. Lights turning off if you run the blow dryer with the iron. It was time for a new panel. Those kinds of things. And so sometimes the appraiser can't see them. So you give them a list. Look, we did this and we changed out this and we fixed that. And then we also did those cosmetic things you see. Those laminate countertops have been replaced with granite or quartz. There are just some things that we have done in order to help boost our value. So how do we want to approach this? The first thing we want to do is we want to think like a buyer, but we also kind of a little bit want to think like an appraiser. If I'm thinking like a buyer, what would I want to look for when I was buying a home? Would I care whether the house had granite or Carrara marble? Those are two pieces of stone that you could use for countertops. One is granite, one is Carrara marble, because granite can look so different, and so can marble, depending on where you cut it out of the slab. Will the person who's purchasing be able to tell the difference in those two pieces? I would have said the marble was the one with the veining, right? Because that's what we know, that's what we're used to seeing from marble. And we know that granite can sometimes have that pebbly rocky look. Well, those were cut out of pieces of the slab where the granite is the one with the veins and the marble is the one with the little rocky look, because they just weren't, the granite was cut out of a real good part of the slab and the marble maybe not so much. So if those things would not make you say, oh no, I can't buy a house without fill in the blank, then the rest of the market may be a lot like you. If it wouldn't be worth spending $10,000 for the marble as opposed to $5,000 for the granite if the market is not going to say, yeah, that marble is really worth that additional $5,000. You won't see that money back. Then I want you to think like an appraiser. What's happening around me? Remember, I mentioned the words comparables. That's how we determine your value. The best comparable in the world is a house that sold this morning next door to you on a lot the exact same size with the exact same floor plan, upgrades, finishes, right? Because we could say if that sold for that this morning, so too with this house. So what we do in the instance where, because of course there's not going to be that, what we do in those instances is we do what appraisers call adjusting. right? We say this one had 4 bedrooms, this one has 3 bedrooms. This bedrooms in this market are this percentage point. They make this kind of percentage point difference. And that's how we begin to reconcile and come up with a value estimate for your property. So you just want to give consideration to what's happening in the properties around you. You want to make sure that you are more concerned with doing a good job as opposed to just throwing money, right? Because sometimes we'll say, well, I spent $7,500, this should have been a good idea. And they say, well, you should have spent three because you'd have gotten more bang for your buck spending a little less money and maybe doing a little better job. Am I over improving? Am I not doing enough? If no one else in my neighborhood has bamboo floors, I should not go get imported bamboo floors. I'm not going to get that back. Now, if everyone else in the neighborhood has vinyl plank flooring, maybe that would be better than me putting in hot orange shag carpet. That may not be enough. And so you want to just see what's happening out there and make sure that you aren't too far to the right or to the left, but that you're kind of going along with what's happening in the market. And how is the market moving? Is my area heating up? Is my area cooling down? You know, if my area is heating up, I might be able to spend a little more because I might be able to get a little more back. If my area is cooling down, I might want to just hit some of the bare minimum things so I can maximize my profit without spending too much. How do we maximize our profit without spending too much? Easy thing, cleanup. That's always, I always say that as step number one. There is nothing that feels better. A model home looks like a model home. Number one, because it's spotless. Why is it spotless? No children live there, right? And so it has an appeal that that only my sister, who also lives in a house that looks like a model home, because no children live there, then most of us can manage. Refresher painting, if someone walks in and it's, I know we appraisers, we do appraise with our eyes, right? We don't, there's not an intention to be biased, but I'm also not blind. So, and what that says, if the easy things are not done, if the easy things are not done, I'm positive you all didn't do the hard things. Now, logics might says I was too tired to do the easy things because I did the hard things, but that's just not the way the human mind works, right? We say if you didn't do this, then for sure you didn't do this. So we also encourage you to replace, repair, damaged, or stained items. You got a hole in the wall, fix it. You know, somebody got mad and kicked the door, put a little hole in the door, replace it. Just those kinds of things that you can do easily. If you had a leak in your bathroom and you fixed the leak, but you did not do anything with the damages that occurred as the result of the leak, then the natural assumption is that leak wasn't, it either wasn't fixed or it wasn't fixed right. Do you get what I'm saying? Complete whatever the project is. And those things are less expensive than really trying to move the needle. And so we always ask, what sells houses, bathrooms, and kitchens? How do we know? The appraisal form only asks about the upgrade or renovation of 2 spaces in the entire home, and that's kitchens and bathrooms. It does not care that you freshly painted. It does not care that you put in new floors. When was the last time they updated the bathrooms and the kitchen? Why? Because those are expensive rooms to do. So will the purchaser have to spend a lot of money to do those renovations if they need it to be done? And that impacts the value to a certain extent. And then something that can be pricey but doesn't have to be is if your house is painted, you really love, all the colors of the rainbow and your home reflects that, then to change that into something that becomes palatable for the market could be expensive. You want to be mindful of those things. Again, if you plan to be in here until you retire, put all the colors in, do all of the things you love, because you're not really looking for that. Your goal is personal value, not pecuniary value. Then the things that we're asked about all the time, and I'll go through this slide really quickly. Is it worth it? So solar panels, generators, swimming pools, outdoor kitchens. The short answer is it is worth it if it is worth it to you. Does the market recognize them as having significant worth currently? No. Solar panels. We are still oil and gas country, right? So even though we think it's nice to have solar panels and maybe it'll make my light bill go down, typically solar panels also come with an extremely expensive setup cost. So much so that if you are selling a house and you have solar panels and you are still in the loan, there are, I don't know any, so I'm not going to say there are none, but I don't know any lenders who will allow a purchaser to purchase that house before the seller has paid that solar contract. And so what will happen at closing is that seller, there must be enough proceeds from the sale to pay that solar panel contract off before a lender will let a purchaser purchase. So keep that in mind if you're making a solar panel decision. Generators, also a thing where if it makes you feel comfortable and it is personally worth it to you, I mention that they are on the property. When I do the appraisal, I do not assign value to it because the market is not yet at a point where people will say, "Oh, there's no generator here. I won't buy this property." We haven't arrived there yet. Swimming pools, same thing. I have a generator. I have a swimming pool. But we enjoy them. They make us feel comfortable. We don't think that they're going to provide any kind of financial return to us. Indeed, the average swimming pool in Houston gets assigned $7,500, $10,000, depending on what part of the market it's in. We've done as much as 25,000 if it was real fancy in a real fancy area. You're just not going to get out what you put in financially. Same thing with outdoor kitchens. So if you're preparing to do something, what do I recommend? Make a plan. Whatever it is that you're deciding to do, don't just do it off the top of your head. Write down a plan. Be honest about what you have to spend. Be specific about what you want to do. Otherwise, scope creep can happen. I replace my floors. Now my furniture looks weird. Oh, I replace my furniture. Now I need new electronics. I've got new electronics. Well, look at this lighting. And if you aren't specific and honest about what you want to spend and what you want to do, you will overextend and you will find yourself now stuck in your property, whether you wanted it to be your retirement property or not, because you may not be able to get back all you put into it. And I still talked longer than I intended. So if you have any questions, anything I can talk to you about specific to what's happening with your property, you can contact me 281-414-5709. And that's it.
Okay. Oh, did I get somebody that came in? Something popped up, but I didn't see. Oh, I see. Question. Oh, she said you did awesome. I thought there was a question. Well, thank you very much.
That just means you're very patient, Letitia.
It's a lot of good information, though. It's like, things that people don't really just kind of think about or don't put into context. A lot of the stuff, as you kind of make it relatable, is like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, okay, that's what that means. So yeah, it's a lot of good information. So next we're going to get into the maintenance. Brian, you ready? Are you on mute? Are you there, Brian? Oh,
I'm here. I'm here. Can you all hear me? Can you hear
I,
me?
I see you and hear you. So without further ado, we got Mr. Brian Smith with the Smith Group Property Inspections. Um, Brian graciously comes off of the roofs of people's houses and outside of the in the interim to do these presentations for us. So we wholeheartedly thank you for that. And in addition to Miss Nikki, she homeschools her children, so I don't want to say she puts them to the side, but for us, she squeezes us in to get these presentations done. So that speaks to the volume of the dedication to get information and the level of service that you guys have when it comes to working with people in the community. And I really, really appreciate that. I really, really do. So without further ado, Mr. Brian Smith, Smith Group Property Inspections, go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Miss Nia, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be invited and to participate. And I'm particularly passionate about this topic because home maintenance is important. So, like she mentioned, my name is Brian Smith, and I am a certified master inspector here in the Greater Houston area. Licensed by the Texas Real Estate Commission, and my team and I, we do a lot of inspections, and so we see a lot, and I bring a special message to everyone, and it is that the maintenance of our homes is very, very important. Whether you're a buyer, whether you're a seller, or somewhere in between. The analogy that I like to make is our vehicles that we drive. You know, if we're proactive with doing oil changes, tires, things like that, it can be a lot less expensive on the back end repairing things once things are neglected. So, with that being said, um, one of the first thoughts that I like to share with people is the investment. You know, a lot of us, we go to work, we work very hard, long hours, we have to save up, and purchasing a home, it's a big deal. It's a blessing. And once we are in a home, it's a really good idea to maintain it. And I got a couple of simple suggestions on how to go about this. So, with every home, I normally like to kind of break it down into what I call the big five systems. The big five. Number one is the roof of your home. Number one is the roof. Number two, the foundation of your home. Number three, the HVAC system, meaning the heating, ventilation, AC, the air conditioning. Number four, the electrical system. And number five, the plumbing. And then, as a bonus, number six, I want to talk about termites and pest activity. So, roof, foundation, we said the HVAC system, electrical, plumbing, termites. So, I'm going to go into a little more detail on each one, but when we break it down into categories like that, it makes the maintenance a bit easier to accomplish. Okay, so let's start with the roof. One of the best things that we can do with our roof is if you have trees in your front yard or backyard and there are tree limbs that are getting too close to your roof or they are touching your roof, we really need to be proactive with the maintenance and trim the tree limbs back, because when the branches are swaying back and forth, they can really damage the shingles on the roof and it can shorten the lifespan of the roof. The ultimate idea is for the roof to protect against moisture coming into the home. And so tree limb maintenance is one good way to protect your roof. You don't want tree branches snapping off and falling on your roof or anything like that. So when it comes to tree maintenance, that goes hand in hand with roof maintenance. And also in that same conversation is the gutters around your home. So I'm a real big fan of having gutters around the roof line, but you want to keep them clear. You don't want the gutters to be clogged with leaves and things like that. And that also goes in the category of maintenance for proper drainage. Okay, so that's roof. Number two, the foundation of your home. So here in Houston, we get a lot of rain, we have moisture, but then sometimes in the summertime we can have a lot of drought. So the idea is that on our foundation, number one, we don't want our foundation of our home to be overcrowded with vegetation. Um, the flower beds, the shrubbery, stuff like that. That can cause a pest problem, but when the moisture gets too high or too low, the soil can contract or expand. And so we want the moisture to remain to the soil to remain at a moderate level. We don't want the soil to get too dry. If you're going around your home and you see soil and it's look like it's cracking, like a desert type look, the soil's too dry. But at the same time, we don't want ponding, standing water close around the foundation, those can cause problems as well. So at a high level, we want moderate moisture year round, not too wet, not too dry. If you have a sprinkler system, which some of us do or don't, at least once or twice a week at a minimum, when in the hot season, will keep things at a reasonable level there. Not saying you got to be watering your foundation or anything like that, but once or twice a week with a little bit of moisture is good enough. And as we're going, if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions. So we talked roof, we talked foundation. Here's a big one. Let's talk AC, HVAC. So um, the HVAC system, the average lifespan is about 15 years here in the greater Houston area. 15 years. And on our air conditioning systems, we're supposed to be doing maintenance to our AC systems annually. A lot of people don't do the maintenance the way that we're supposed to do on an air conditioning system. And that involves a licensed HVAC technician coming out and cleaning the making sure the refrigerant level is at an acceptable level, um, service in the unit. Now, there are some DIY things we can do as homeowners with our AC system, starting with changing the air filters. Once every 90 days is recommended, at a minimum twice a year. Whenever the filters get excessively clogged, it can really choke down the unit, and we don't want that. So changing the air filters regularly is a really good first step. And then another step, you'll hear people talking about adding bleach or vinegar into the condensation drain. It's an easy step to keep things clear in your AC system. That's something definitely that I would recommend. But we really want to have an AC technician come out, service the unit if you can. On your exterior unit, you want to make sure that it's not clogged with leaves and debris and stuff like that, vegetation overcrowding your unit. This can make the unit have to work harder than it really needs to. So another good idea for your AC system. But changing filters, making sure the outdoor unit isn't overcrowded, and clearing the condensation drain with a little bit of vinegar or bleach are some good DIY things you can do to help your unit.
I have a quick question for you, Brian, real quick, since you're on the AC unit. Now I've heard from, and I don't know if this is true or preference or what have you, about people power washing their unit outside when, or with a water hose or whatever. Is that something that you recommend doing?
So I would recommend, so yes. So now power washing, I would say be careful with too strong of a volume, but just a regular rinse to remove debris from the fins of the unit so that air can flow freely is a good idea. That's something you don't have to pay anyone to come and do. That goes in the same category with landscaping and things like that. So yes, I think that's a good idea. Okay, and I think we got some other questions. Uh, should I take those at the end, Miss Nia, or
Yes,
we want to do
I'm
them?
sorry. Yeah, I just kind of interrupted right in there, but yes, we will definitely get to those. I'm sorry. I had
Okay,
to,
okay.
yes.
So I'm gonna keep pressing forward. So next is the electrical system. On the electrical system, normally we're pretty good with our outlets. Want to make sure that we have smoke detectors changed, things like that. Our GFCIs in the wet areas of the kitchens, bathroom, things like that. If you got any electrical outlets that are loose, want to give them a little tighten so we don't have any exposed wires, things like that. Electrical can be pretty straightforward. We don't normally want to mess with the electrical panel if we don't have to. And then plumbing. Plumbing is another good system. It gets overlooked, but here's a couple of things we can do as homeowners. Number one, we want to make sure that all the toilets in the home are anchored securely and they're not loose at the base. Something as simple as a loose toilet can lead to an expensive plumbing issue versus simple maintenance, making sure it's anchored down securely and then sealed at the floor interface. So making sure that the toilets are anchored securely. Um, we want to look under our sinks, kitchen, bathrooms. Want to make sure we don't overdo it with the storage underneath our sinks. We don't want to bump the plumbing underneath the sinks and, end up with a water leak that can, balloon into something more. So being proactive with monitoring the plumbing under the sinks, watching what we're putting down our drains. So that's another one that can save us in the long run. We don't want to be putting any kind of chemicals, non-flushable type items down sinks, things like that. And then, if we can avoid, hair and things like that can clog a drain, those are things that we want to pay attention to. If you got slow draining sinks, things like that, we want to be proactive with getting them cleared. So at a high level, we talked roof, we talked foundation, plumbing system, we talked some electrical, we talked HVAC. And one other issue that I see in the Houston area quite a bit is pest activity. A lot of us, we don't like pests, but in particular termites. Termites can cause a lot of damage. And if you don't know what termites are, they are wood destroying insects. And one of the things that we can do as homeowners to be proactive is keep it clean and clear around your home, particularly with the vegetation. If you have vegetation that's crowding the home, touching the house, things like that, that's not what we want. We want to be able to see at least 3 or 4 inches of visible foundation around the bottom of the home, and we don't want overcrowding of vegetation, the mulch, the soil, things like that. These are ways that you can get pest activity into your home faster. So clean and clear, and that's a really good way to keep things to be proactive with maintenance around the home. So I think we got some questions here, Miss Nia, and I'm ready. I'm ready for questions.
Okay. Let me go back up here if I can scroll up. Um, she says, "How is this done when you live in a townhouse?" And I'm not sure if she was referring
So
to
I so
on the
I think I
HVAC
think I think
question
she's
popped
I
in.
think I think she's talking about the HVAC system and and the bleach and the vinegar on
Oh
that.
yeah,
Now,
the bleach
what I
and
will
vinegar.
say, the bleach and the vinegar, depending on the configuration of your home, like some of these townhomes can be 2, 3 stories high, and they'll even put AC components up on the roof
Roof.
and in the attic. So if the townhome has an HVAC system that's not easily accessible, then that may be something that we want to, defer to the HVAC technician. I'm talking more of, a 3 bed, 2 bath home, and there's a drain line, like, soon as you peek your head into the attic, is like right there at by the AC pan. And I can share a couple of YouTube videos with Miss Nia that she can share with you all that are really good DIY that can show illustrations of the way different houses are set up and where to find it. But if it's a townhome where it's extremely high, I would kind of maybe recommend to have a HVAC contractor do the maintenance for you.
Okay, and that was the next question. Where do you find the condensation drain?
Yes. So oftentimes they will be in the attic close to there's an overflow pan close to the AC equipment in the attic. This is in the Houston area. Some homes they have like it may be on more ground level and you open up a like a almost closet type door and you can see some equipment in there. So there's a couple of different configurations, but normally it's close to the HVAC equipment, either in the attic or in a utility closet.
You just mentioned the overflow of the drain plan twice. So can you explain the maintenance on that as well?
Yes. So when the air conditioning unit is functioning, it is producing, it's removing condensate. I mean, it's removing humidity from your home. One of the main things that it's doing. And when it removes humidity from your home, it produces condensation. And up in the attic, there's condensation drain lines. They're normally plastic piping, and over time, that those condensation drain lines can get clogged with like a almost like an algae type substance. And that's what I'm talking about, putting the bleach and the vinegar in to make sure that things don't get clogged. But if they do get clogged, there's a pan in the attic that is called a secondary, it's called a condensation pan. And it will fill up with water to prevent, water from dripping on the ceiling in your house. Again, I can share some brief YouTube clips with Miss Nia that she can share with you all. But that's where the maintenance comes in, because we never want water in this pan. And so if we're doing the bleach and the vinegar and doing the regular maintenance, we won't get water in that pan. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And I think some visuals will be helpful here.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen, like when you go into sometimes in somebody's house, you'll see these little brown spots and stuff on the ceiling, and you automatically assume that it's a roof leak, and it's sometimes can be where that drain pan, because it actually ended up happening to me. The drain pan overflowed, and then it causes those stains and spots to go up there. But we ended up putting what do they call that?
Hilts.
What's the words that what's the word, the little thing that trips it to make it turn off,
Oh,
so
a float switch.
a float switch, yeah, the float switch. So there's a float switch that's on there now, so if water fills up or it gets to a certain level in that pan, it'll automatically trip the AC unit off from running, so that more water doesn't continue to fill up and then overflow and put that stain on the ceiling. So that's something that just really literally went to Home Depot and got and had somebody to install that and put that on. But that's worked very well since then too.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's another question. I gotta scroll down. What about changing out two-prong plugs to three-pronged plugs? Should all prongs be three in your home?
Let me see. Uh, hang on my volume. I mean,
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so short answer is yes. In modern electrical, all of our outlets should be three prong, with the third prong being the grounding prong. When you look into older homes and you see only the two outlet slots, that tells you right away that, I mean, the outlets aren't grounded properly according to modern standards. So short answer is yes, we should have an electrician take a look at those outlets to make sure that they're updated to modern three-prong outlets so that they're grounded properly.
And the key word, an electrician to do
An
it, not
electrician. So if you just take that cover off and stick a new cover on with three prongs, it's not grounded. It's not grounded. So there's a little bit of updating that needs to happen there. Not just swapping the cover to one with the three holes on it.
mm-hmm. Okay. Another, should the light switches be updated as well?
So light switches, I'm thinking that you're possibly talking about like the toggle switch. I mean, as from an inspector standpoint, I mean, those are kind of more cosmetic than anything. If it comes on and it goes off, that's all I wanted to do. Now there are some more modern ones that look, more sleek, but from an inspector standpoint, does it work? Does it come on and off?
I've seen two before I could get to the next question, but since we're talking about the switches and the covers, I've seen where people have like these little the insulation things that go around that you put behind the plates in the wall to keep either air or pests or something from coming through. Do you recommend putting some kind of little insulation thing around the electrical plugs or the light switches?
Yes.
Is
So
that
normally what they'll do is put a little inexpensive gasket around there. And the thing is, the idea, yes, you want things to be sealed so that so short answer is yes. And like if you look at new construction homes, you'll see when they go and put like a mount an outlet and whatnot, it'll have like a little gasket on the back facing of it so that it sits flush and it's not just kind of floating out there.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Sealed toilets around the interface. Does that mean the caulking around the toilet floor?
Yes, ma'am. So first of all, the toilet is supposed to be anchored securely. So if I walk up and nudge it with my knee, that it doesn't slide around at the base. So that's number one. But then after it's secured properly, then we want to caulk it where the vertical toilet meets the horizontal floor. We want to seal and caulk that interface as a final step to make sure things are sealed properly.
And
Because and part of the thought process there in the bathrooms, these are high moisture areas. We want to make sure things are sealed properly so we don't get moisture intrusion in a lot of different areas in bathrooms.
or when you sit on the toilet, you can kind of feel it tilting and rocking and things like that.
Yeah.
And,
Speaking of
and
bathrooms, I was in a house this morning in Katy, nice house, and the bathroom was fully carpeted. I mean, y'all don't do that. Don't put carpet in your bathroom. It was
that's nasty.
fully carpeted bathroom. So when it comes to maintenance, that's not a good maintenance move.
That's just nasty anyway, I think. But that's
E-
just my personal. But
Yeah.
let's see if there's anything else there. There was another question that I saw that was emailed. Um,
So also while she's looking that up, what I will share with you guys is that I have there's a maintenance flyer that I share with Miss Nia, and
oh, and
it's
I
got
have it.
our company phone number, it's got our website, and she'll share that with you. And like if you think of something after this call that maybe
There we go.
you didn't you can always reach out to me. Brian Smith, call me, text me. Um, uh, message me on Instagram or Facebook, and I'm always happy to answer any questions.
I've got it up, Brian. Here it goes.
Okay. Oh yes, that sheet right there. That's a really good. It's a really good guide on different maintenance tips to do in different seasons: fall, spring, monthly. There's some stuff that you do annually, so that's a really good guide.
Okay. And I'll make sure that this, like Brian mentioned, I will be emailing this out to everyone as well. And it's got his contact information on there too. Okay. Let's see. There was another question I saw pop up. Uh, let's see. Is it
How do you
flooring,
keep
tiling, or carpeting? How do you keep
from
getting
getting
duped
duped
by
by?
an HVAC person or company?
So okay, so first of all, you to keep from getting duped, you get three estimates. And if one of and at a certain once you get three estimates, let me tell you, in my personal experience, the way people get duped is not getting multiple estimates. Going with the first guy that walks in the door that smiles and sounds good. A lot of times that's how people can get duped. Getting impatient when you're doing a transaction, you want to be able to compare apples to apples. And if you get impatient and go with the first guy, that's not a good thing. So if you get three estimates, that's a really good first start to not getting duped by any contractor. HVAC, electrical, and otherwise. Don't get impatient. Get three estimates.
And what's a good rule of thumb when it comes to HVAC systems to know the kind of unit that you should be getting so that you're not getting oversold on something? Because I've seen people where they get units that are too big, and
Yeah.
it creates too much condensation in the house, and they start to develop mold because it's
So
it's too
so
much.
great question. So great question. So as a general rule of thumb, so first of all, HVAC units are very similar to cars. You have maybe lower end cars, middle of the road, higher end. And the same thing with HVAC units. You have all models, aren't the same, but then units have tonnage and stuff like that. And so um the standard house, let's say a 3,000 square foot house. I mean, you're talking, I mean, a three and a half ton. The general rule here in Houston, and I have a chart. Better yet, I'm gonna send you a chart to share with everyone, Miss Nia. And
Okay.
it's a ratio of square footage to tonnage of AC. So basically, a 5 ton AC unit is a big unit here in Houston. And we basically you shouldn't put a 5 ton unit on like a 1,000 square foot house. That's too big for a small house. So I have a chart I can share with you that gives you some general guidance there. So we don't get too big of a unit. But I will say this: a licensed HVAC unit, reputable company. Shame on them if they, overselling people too big units, but it can happen.
Are there special licenses or anything like that or like if you needed to look somebody up, so to speak, that they should be registered with anybody or licensed somewhere? Because I know a lot of general contractors don't necessarily have to have any kind of state licensing or anything like that. So is there a way to look up? Oh, oops, I think we lost Brian. I do believe, yep, there he goes. He's coming back. I got you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think I pressed the wrong button there. But
Oh,
short
kind of.
answer is yes. In Texas, electricians, HVAC companies, plumbers, they're all supposed to be licensed. Now, general contractors is a gray area. They don't have a license. But if you have someone doing HVAC, electrical, plumbing, there are those are licensed tradespeople, and you can look that up on Texas Department of Licensing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's another part of the area of the homework to do once you're out there getting the quotes. Okay. I think those were all the questions that were in the chat here, Brian. Um, since it'll be this is April, we do these sessions every other month, so it'll be June before we do the next session. In preparation for the hurricane season, what's the kind of big things that people should kind of be thinking about or start to kind of do as it relates to preparing for hurricane season?
Yeah, hurricane season. That's a good one. I think that I mean for me, I think that everyone needs to be prepared for if the power goes out for an extended period of time. What is your game plan? Do you have a generator? Are you going somewhere? If you can't go nowhere, I think that everybody needs to have a plan for what happens when if the power goes out because that's the number one thing. I mean, I think that you know I think that in Houston, I mean, if we got air conditioning, I think we're okay in the summertime. But when the power goes out and we don't have any electricity, that's when the problems happen. So, in addition to getting you some non-perishables and batteries and flashlights and all of that, having a game plan for if and when the electricity goes out for an extended period of time. I mean, whether that's whatever your plan is, I would recommend maybe some kind of small generator that can operate, something, but having your personal plan for when the electricity goes out.
And that was the next question. How do you know what's the right size or type of generator to get for your house?
So, short answer is it depends on what you're going to be trying to do when the power goes out. So, short answer is I'll use my mom as an example. She has a smaller house, and well, number one, so the game. So speaking of game plan, so if there's a name storm coming, I go pick my mom up and bring her to my house, so she's not sitting over there by herself in a storm. But if you're by yourself, a small generator and you just want to keep the refrigerator running, a fan or something like that, I mean, a smaller $300 to $500 generator and some good extension cords. I mean, that's all you really need. But if you're trying to, you know, power AC units and stuff like that, that's a different conversation. depending on what you're trying to power up, depending on the configuration and the and what you're trying to do.
You said a $300 to $500 generator, and I've seen like different wattages and stuff on generators. Like, what does that equate to in wattage or the kilowatts or whatever that I've seen on generator? What's the wattage for a $500 versus a $300?
Let me see. Let me say. Let me say. I don't want to tell you a wrong number. But any entry level generator. Hang on. I'm gonna give you a number right now. So like a three to 5,000 watt generator. 3 to 5,000 watt is enough to keep a refrigerator on, some fans and stuff like that. 3 to 5,000 watt. That's normally about the size of a entry to mid size generator.
Okay. And do you recommend getting those they call them the Generacs or something that people get installed on their houses?
So if that's your forever home and you know without a shadow of a doubt you're never leaving that house, because that's quite an investment, and most Generac systems you can't pick that up and take it with you. So it's an expensive investment. um if that's your forever home and you have the resources, absolutely do it, because if the power goes out, it's going to kick on instantly versus a more portable generator. There's a little bit more manual things that have to happen to get that functional for you. Again, if you got the resources, absolutely, and it's going to be your forever home, do it. I'm all for it, but that requires maintenance also. A whole home generator, you can't just install that and never do maintenance to it.
Okay, so I think that takes me back, and I'm going to get back to the termite question. But for Ms. Nikki, if someone was to go through and purchase or make that kind of an investment to get a generator installed on their home, does that add any kind of value to their home?
Yeah, I think that may be a Miss Nikki question. I'm not sure if
Endless
they're.
personal value.
That's what I thought. That's what
And
I
but
thought.
and this is the thing, on our contracting side, we do generator installation. And this is the thing that we ask people to think about. Do you have a deep freezer full of food? Are your refrigerators full? Do you have someone in your home who requires constant medical equipment use? There are so many personal things that loss of power, in your area. There are some areas who during that first freeze were without power for months. So there are just some things that you have to consider. We're dealing now with a client who does not have gas to her. She doesn't have natural gas to her property, and so we put in with a propane plan in place. Well, for what it's gonna cost to keep that propane full because of the price of gas right now, we're about to pay. We're about to see what Centerpoint will charge to bring gas to her property. It will be less expensive, but she cannot be without power, for very long. So it really is one of those things where it's gonna be more, how would it personally impact you to be without power for a sustained amount of time?
But for somebody that just says I'm gonna I have a generator, or they use that as like a selling point, it has nothing to do with the appraised value, increasing the appraised value on
It
their house.
won't. It won't.
Okay,
All it will do is, give
be a
the
good
give the
selling
next
point.
person some personal security.
Gotcha. Okay, Brian, we're back to you. How do you enlist someone to determine the amount termites can damage, or how expensive, if if it is extensive, and then what do you do to remedy termite damage?
So termite damage. So first of all, we need to get a pest control company out. I know couple of good reputable pest control companies, and then they will diagnose the extent of the termite damage. The good thing here in Houston, we have the slower moving type termites. They're called subterranean termites. So I don't know about that situation, how long it's been there, but a pest control company can diagnose that, and then and what they do is They can do spot treatment. They can do a full home barrier treatment. So you'll have options depending on the specific situation. And so there'll be options available.
Okay. And we always have to mention this in the home buyer class that people think, oh, I'm getting a brick house, I don't have to worry about termites. That termites actually eat through brick as well. So just an FYI.
Yeah, because the houses in Houston, the framing is made out of wood, and then they put the brick on the outside. So there's wood in there, and the termites know how to find it.
Let's see.
And whatever you do, those little holes that you see near your foundation,
The weep holes.
do not fill them. You
Correct.
will have problems beyond what you can imagine, and the remediation in that, people will say, well, that'll keep the bugs out. Those are purposeful. They serve a purpose with regard to moisture in our market. You don't want to play with stuff the builder put in place. I promise he was not trying to get you an infestation.
Yeah, so she's talking about around the perimeter of the brick at the bottom, kind of close to the ground. You'll see what they call weep holes, WEEP, weep holes, and don't fill them up because they're there to help the home breathe, ventilation, condensation, that kind of thing. And to her point, some people they they think they're doing a good thing. Oh, I think the builder forgot this, and I've seen people plug them up with cement and all kind of stuff, and end up with more of a problem than they bargained for.
Mhm. Okay, someone said I just got a generator plug connected to my new breaker box. Should I be getting a certain type of generator?
So what that question is, I think, Ms. Nia, they're talking about there's a setup where you can have a plug connected to your electrical outlet, your electrical panel. So if the power goes out, you can run a big cord from your generator and plug it up to the panel and get a lot of your home energized. And the answer to that question is the plug that the electrician puts on the wall needs to be compatible with the cord that comes out of the generator. So, short answer is consult with your electrician to make sure that the male and female plug connection are compatible. So that's something that your electrician could easily help you with there.
So somebody shouldn't just go to Home Depot and just go grab one and just stick it in there and
No,
or
and really, there's most of the time there's two choices. There's a 30 amp connection and a 50 amp connection, and normally those are the two that you have to choose from. But your electrician can tell you which one you have. Do you have a 30 amp plug or a 50 amp plug? That's normally the conversation that we're normally having.
is there anything that needs to be done as far as, getting that kind of plug to make sure that the generator that you get to plug in can withstand or what's the word I'm trying to use to make sure that you're not going to overload something in the
Right.
house or it gets too hot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So this generator plugging into electrical panel is not a DIY exercise. So
Okay.
if that's something that you got set up at your house, you need to be holding hands with your electrician to make sure that you understand how this is set up, how do you connect it in an emergency situation, all of the above. That's not just a um, you know, something that you're going to set up yourself. You need to have your electrician thoroughly walk you through the ins and outs of your configuration on that.
Okay. Make sure. Right. And I don't see any other questions there. I think that's about it.
Well, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, if you guys think of anything that you didn't ask right now, please send me a message, text, call, email, Instagram, Facebook. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm sorry. I don't type that fast, and I had something else to say for you
hey,
with
Miss Letitia,
y'all
how are
were talking
you?
about I'm good. It's always great to be a part of what you all are doing, and I so appreciate everybody that takes out of their time to do this.
Thank
It
you.
is so meaningful and helpful to us. Um, I had a question about those weep holes. If weep holes do allow little vermins or other things into the house, but you can't plug them because then you're stuck out some kind of way. Um, is there a way to like put some little grates or something there in front of them? I know it's a lot of them, but is there any other way to prevent
Yes.
maybe rodents or something?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yes, ma'am. So a lot of so this is something you can do that is DIY but professional.
Okay.
A lot of pest control companies now they have like a more porous type material kind of you can kind of imagine like a Brillo pad. I wouldn't put a
Uh-huh.
Brillo pad in there because it'll get rusty and it'll make a mess.
Oh
But on Amazon they sell these little like little plastic inserts that are porous that you
Kind
can
of,
yeah. Okay.
slide in there. And so you know, you can look into that or a pest control company can do it for you, but there are options there.
Okay. Okay. And the other thing is a termite one. If termite treatment has been, purchased maybe years, how they're supposed to come out every year and all that. But there's an issue regarding getting them to come and retreat and those types of things, just issues with the company. Is there a venue, like you were talking about the licensure and things of that nature? Where do you go to rectify issues when you can't get what you've paid for in retreatments and other things that they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I mean, you can check with the licensing, but a lot of times I'll tell you in past experience, I don't know that particular experience, but the pest control conversation is a hand in hand company and homeowner responsibility conversation. So earlier I
Mm-hmm.
talked about making sure the landscaping is clean and clear. So a lot of times, if a company comes out and does termite treatment, for example, they'll issue a warranty and say the warranty is valid provided that the homeowner maintains the landscaping and provided the homeowner does this and that. And so, you know, the company's responsibility is one point, but it's also another point to see what's required of the homeowner to be in compliance of this warranty. And
Mm-hmm.
so look at the paperwork, make sure that you understand, you know, when was the treatment done, what's the scope of the warranty, but what are the responsibilities of the homeowner in terms of
Mm-hmm.
being in compliance of this warranty.
Thank you so much.
mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I believe that is just about it. Oh, I was gonna make a comment too about the weep holes. Miss Letitia, just so that you know, the weep hole itself is not like a hole or a tunnel that goes from the outside directly into the inside of your house. So if you're worried
Okay.
about like some little mouse or something kind of just crawling directly into your house, it's not that kind of a hole. So the weep hole is literally just something for that moisture to get out. That's that space between where the brick is and where that what is that on the inside of there? I don't know if it's the insulation part of the framing or whatever's behind the brick. It's
Yeah,
that
so they call it the
space,
wall sheathing
the wall
right
sheet.
behind the brick. And so to your point, yes, the weep hole it doesn't go just straight into your house, but yeah, it's a good conversation.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else, Miss Nikki, that you want to add or
No,
Brian
we
before we
had a
let you
great
guys
time
go?
today.
Yeah, we did. Good one, good one, good one. I appreciate you guys very much. Um, we are also in the process of getting ready for our we usually do a home maintenance or a home improvement fair in June. That's usually held somewhere over at the YMCA. So I'll keep you guys posted about that. Mr. Martinez, did you have a question? I see you came off mute.
Oh no, that was an accident. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. I mean, feel free. But so we will have a home improvement fair that's going to be coming up in June. We'll send that information out to you guys next month on May the for the homeowners that are here. May, we make sure I got my dates right. May 13th and May 16th. We have a part one, part two of a transfer on death deed clinic that we host, have been hosting like just about every other month. And it's an alternative to a for someone that wants to make sure that they pass their home on to the heirs without the cost expense of probate. It's a $30-$45 fee that you pay to the county clerk's office wherever your home is actually located, and upon your passing, your home is automatically transferred over to the person that you intend for it to go to. It's a great option. It's very cost effective for those folks that do not have a will, do not have an estate plan, or anything like that that's put in place. It is something that we highly recommend for a lot of homeowners to help them with preventing heirs property issues. So there's a lot of that, a lot of scams that have been happening. It's just a whole lot of stuff that we're trying to do to make sure that people don't lose their home, lose that generational wealth and access to that. And then especially with the storms and things like that that are coming up, if something happens to you and you don't have the home that's actually in your name, or the deed is not in your name, then you won't be able to qualify for those different services and resources that are out there when it comes to home maintenance and needing to get any kind of assistance. So I will be sending out that information to you guys as well. But again, we are here every other month with this presentation. So if you guys want to come back, you have some other maintenance questions, please feel free to join us again. This session is being recorded. We also do broadcast it on our social media channels, on our YouTube pages. So those links will be sent out to you as well. The information that I had gotten, that Brian said that he would be sending the videos for some for the maintenance for the HVAC system. I'll make sure that that gets included along with his home maintenance checklist for the monthly, quarterly, and annual things that you all can do in the meantime as well. Am I forgetting anything? I feel like I'm forgetting to mention something really quick here. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, ma'am.
can I ask a quick question, please?
Yes.
Thank you so much, because I'm on the freeway going 80 miles an hour on my way to
Oh,
work, so I can't
oh,
type.
please don't do that.
So my question, I don't know if he's still on the line, is if you're able to control or do what you can as a homeowner regarding controlling traffic at your home, but the house on each side of you is vacant, and the only thing they do is do basic yard cutting. The house across the street from you is vacant, and they do basic lawn care. But when you look at their lawn, they have mounds of termites all over their yard. What am I supposed to do as a homeowner?
That's a good question. Nikki, have you, and I don't see Brian there. Let me
So
see if I can get him back
typically, um, typically it is the onus of whoever owns those properties to make sure that they create a safe and sound environment, which is also incumbent upon them to make sure that their property does no damage to your property. Um, so I'm a Mo City girl, and typically what we would do here is we would call code enforcement, especially if you cannot, sometimes you may have an owner who isn't here. Somebody owns that property, whether it's a bank, whoever owns it, somebody owns that property. And if you can't get in touch with the homeowners to make sure that they're just reaching bare minimum standards and making sure that there are not active termites on the property is meeting bare minimum standards, then you have to reach out to the municipality, and sometimes they can paper an owner enough to make the owner then take care of that property.
Yeah, so probably if you're within the city of Houston, probably 311. And then to maybe like the HOA, maybe to have them to notify the homeowner as well. Especially because a lot of times the homeowners, aren't there. Either, like you said, it's either vacant or they have somebody that's renting the property. Of course, they may not take care of it as much as the actual homeowner who's actually residing there may. But try the HOA and call in 311 as well.
Okay, because they had a big tree limb that fell on my roof. I was pissed off because I had to pay out of pocket to get that tree limb off of my roof, and they refused to accept responsibility.
Well, technically, and I'm not the insurance agent, but from my understanding, if it's due to like some kind of a storm or some disaster or something like that, then I don't think they are responsible. Well, not by the homeowner insurance standards, from my understanding. Is that Nikki? Now, if it's just basic negligence and the tree was kind of
Right,
leaning over there and
right.
they never did anything about it, and then it fell, just kind of fell, then that's a different story. Then they would be responsible. But if it was an act of something weather related or whatever that caused it to fall, then I don't think there is much response or anything, any kind of remedy, I guess, that you
Unless you could
can
have
issue
had
against it.
reasonable expectation that in the event of an act of God, this would have caused damage. Because they're just sometimes it's like any homeowner, I mean, a homeowner's insurance will tell you you should not let your tree go over your roof. Then in the
Uh,
event that your tree falls down, they're not going to do a thing because they tell you don't let it grow over your roof like that. Do you get what I'm saying? So
yeah,
if
I
there was a
understand.
reasonable expectation that even in the event of something happening, that this would have caused damage, there could be some liability.
Yeah.
You mean like when her mother refused to accept responsive homeowner responsibility for it?
I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time? I think you were kind of breaking up a little bit.
When her mother died, and her mother gave her ownership of that property, she deliberately refused to accept responsibility as a homeowner. But I know that's a
That
topic
pretty,
for another day.
yeah. Then that definitely requires some looking into. I'd
I was
say.
about to say that's
Uh,
a topic for when the attorneys are here.
Yeah, but it's affecting my maintenance on my home. But
Mhm.
I understand that's a topic for another day.
I can check with one of our insurance agents that attend our home buyer class to see. Or have you tried your insurance company, your homeowner's insurance company, to see what
Mhm.
they could do? Was it one of your little students that just popped their head in? Okay, I thought I saw.
And looked at the screen and said, "Oh my goodness."
But yeah, I check with your homeowner's insurance company too and see what they say
Okay, thank you.
and see if they can help.
All
Okay.
right, thank you
All right.
very much.
So yeah, Brian did just had to leave, but he says that I can send him the question about the termite that you had, and then I can let you know, Miss Sauls.
Thank you so much. As always, you're on my prayers.
Thank you
Nia.
very much.
You, you,
Thank you.
you all are, you're all angels.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We try to be. We appreciate it. Like I said, that there's quite a few different presentations that we do throughout the year. If there are any topics that you guys have concerns or questions about, then please feel free to reach out to us so that we can potentially, considering now we got all these questions, it's kind of triggered me to think about homeowner disputes or neighbor disputes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the legality there? That may be a topic that I can look and check with the attorneys to see if we can get some kind of a presentation about that as well. But there's a survey link that pops up. If you could just kind of put in a couple of suggestions for that, so that way I won't forget, and because charge it to my mind and not my heart. If you could make sure that you put that on the little recommendation, and I'll be emailing the link, so don't worry about trying to click the link before we get off of here while you're driving. And just make that little suggestion so that way I can start looking into that for you. So, but if there are any other topics that we don't currently offer that you guys may be interested in, then please let us know. So,
Hey,
with that
Nia,
being
I'm sorry.
said,
One more thing. I know y'all got to go.
yes,
But
ma'am.
her question really prompted a question in my mind. How does neglected property around your property, whether yours is kept or not, impact those values they're talking about and evaluations and things of that nature.
There you go, Miss Nikki.
This is a delicate question because it does, but it may not. Um, because we use historical data to develop our value estimates. What we look at is what comparable houses around you have sold for. And if those properties have had impact in previous sales, then that impact will also follow for you. If those properties have not had impact on previous sales, then it won't have impact for you. It's not like we say, we don't treat a neglected house next door to you the way we would a landfill. Do you get what I'm saying? There are some external forces that would automatically adjust for property. Now, if you had a property where someone, I mean, it was just about a junkyard next to that, then we may have to mention, that next door, and it is possible that this may impact its market appeal. But if three other houses sold on the same street in the same neighborhood, and they are also in close proximity to those houses, then you could have a reasonable expectation that your value would fall somewhere in the range of those sales prices.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
That would also be a good question for the appraisal districts
Mhm.
next what was it, next week? In 2 weeks. Wait a minute. Make sure I'm looking at it right. No, that's next week, next Wednesday. Since it's the protest presentation that they're going to be doing, and what impacts your property value as it relates to what your tax bill could potentially be. So
Now, if it's about your tax value, absolutely it negatively impacts your value.
I know that their market value and appraised value for your taxes are two totally different things. What it will sell for in the open market versus what they're saying your property is worth, and that's gonna, determine what the amount that you pay in your taxes. You definitely always want to protest and say that you're, and I'm being recorded here, but if it's impacting you,
Let me say, then I will
okay.
say things. The appraiser will say it. This is an excellent year to protest. Many years we have come and I've done this talk and I've said you're going to have a hard time because the values can be supported in the market and you're going to have to kind of highlight everything that's wrong with your value. Well, because we're in a year of market correction, this will be a good year. That value last year, that value this year, those are not the same numbers
Mm-hmm.
in most cases.
So tune in next week and definitely ask that question next week.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Nikki. We appreciate you. And thanks to Brian Smith with Smith Group Property Inspections as well, who had to get off to go get and finish his inspection. Appreciate you very much, Miss Nikki, as always. You joined us several years ago to try to help us with with getting this information out there, and it's been great. It's been wonderful having you here. We really appreciate it. Tell your kiddos we appreciate them allowing us to take their teacher away for a little while. Um,
I am going to
but
get my talk down to 30 minutes if it kills me. I haven't done it yet in all these years.
well, but it's a lot of information to try to compact in 30 minutes. So if we can just get it out, that's not a problem, not a problem. So thank you very much. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope to see you next time again next week. If you guys know of any renters that may be potentially facing eviction due to their financial hardship, we have that presentation on Tuesday. Wednesday, again, is the property tax, the protest valuations, exemptions, and payment options is on Wednesday. On Thursday is the property tax foreclosure presentation. So if anyone's in jeopardy of losing their home because of non-payment of property taxes and they're facing foreclosure, they definitely want to tune in for that presentation as well. So again, the calendar will be sent out to everybody, the copy of the recording, the resources that were mentioned, the links for the different videos and things, all of that's going to be sent out to you guys for reference. So we want to thank y'all again for joining us. You all have a wonderful remainder of your day. You take care of yourselves, and we will see y'all next time. Thank you.